Eagles Entertainment.
Hi, Eagles everywhere, and welcome to the Eagles Insider Podcast, presented by Lincoln Financial Group on this Monday. It's the NFL Draft Week, 2020 style. It is here. It is unusual, and we're going to talk about it. I'm Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro, and in this podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into exactly how the Eagles have gone about the preparation for the 2020 NFL Draft. We know that the Eagles will be in remote locations, so what kind of preparation went into place to get Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Andy Weidel, Doug Peterson, all of the scouts, everyone ready for this moment? The Eagles have 8 draft picks. We know that. We'll get into that more in detail in Wednesday's podcast. But for this podcast, we want to introduce you to 2 Eagles staff members that you probably never heard of.
Patrick Dolan, Vice President of Football Technology for the Philadelphia Eagles.
David Sullivan, and I am the broadcast and AV engineer for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Those 2 men, Patrick Dolan and David Sullivan, among many who have been instrumental in getting Howie Roseman ready to go as he chairs this draft. Let's first hear from Roseman on the preparation. We remember that the Eagles left the NovaCare complex on March 12th. They haven't returned. They've been working remotely since then through free agency and now through this moment. Here's Howie Roseman. Okay, so Howie, sounds like a lot of people in a collaborative way have put together a pretty good replication of what you would normally have at the NovaCare complex. How do you feel the process has been working?
It's been great. Really tremendous credit to all the people in our organization, whether that's IT, the scouts, the coaching staff. It's just been a really good process, and it gives everyone an opportunity to really dial in on what we're looking for and what we need, and just proud of the people that we work with on a daily basis.
Howie, for the fans who visualize this draft room at the NovaCare complex as a Taj Mahal, if you will, can you describe what you have there and what makes that room so great?
At the NovaCare draft room?
Correct.
Well, you have every resource at your disposal. I mean, it is really like being at NASA for the draft day. You have these incredible monitors. You have, obviously, the resources, all the people that we have in the building at your fingertips. And there's nothing that you're wanting for. Every single thing that you need to see is there. And we're very fortunate to have that. But it's a new experience for us having that draft room. And we won a Super Bowl with having a different draft room. And we will make do. There's no excuses. There are a lot of people that are going through very difficult times. And for us, we think that this is just an opportunity to give people a distraction and have the draft day. And we need to do our best job.
So can you describe then what your setting will be for April 23rd through April 25th in as much detail as you can give us?
Yeah, Dave, and I can send you a picture. I am very fortunate that I have an office space in my house, and even before all of this, Pat Dolan and our video team did an amazing job of setting up a mock office so that at any point that I was home, that I would have the same resources I had at the facility in case something came up, late at night, during the off season, at times that I wasn't in the office. So I have every single thing that I need other than, my people around me who are unbelievable and I miss. But I will have all those resources there. So in terms of draft board, things coming off the clock, video, really everything there. So there's no excuses in place for us not to have a really good draft and great draft process.
Howie, do you have backup telephones and do you have 5 monitors, and are you able to see Andy Weidel and to see Jeffrey Lurie and to see Doug Peterson? Is that kind of the stuff that you've been able to replicate?
Yeah, our Microsoft Team meetings have been unbelievable. We've had as many as 30 people on meetings, and when the person talks, you can see the video of that person. And so we'll have all those. We'll have I'll have a ton of monitors in my office so that I have all those resources. So if I need to call on an area scout who's at the school and knows the player the best, I can do that. If I need to call on one of our coaches, to get their perspective. I'll be able to do that. Medical, everything that we need to ensure that we have a really good draft.
How many times will you run through the actual draft process and then I would imagine the post-draft process, which is already organized chaos, you have to run through that and kind of rehearse for that. Does that happen a lot leading up to Thursday?
Yes, we've already had those meetings, and we'll have a bunch of mock drafts. We'll have a mock post-draft to kind of replicate it because it is a little bit different. And we'll just make sure we're communicating as much as possible. And I think one of the benefits to this has been that we've really been able to all of us dive in and trust each other and build camaraderie here, which has been fun to see. I mean, can't wait to get back. Can't wait to get back to work and going to the office and being with everyone, you included for sure, Dave. But at the same time, we understand that we got a job to do, and we feel fortunate that we're able to do that.
Awesome. Howie, thank you so much. Good luck in the draft, and hope I know everything will work out because everybody's spoken with such confidence that the teamwork has been incredible putting this whole thing together.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Stay safe, and let's keep getting the social distancing down so that we can get back as soon as possible.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Howie.
All the best. See you.
Take care. Patrick Dolan has been in the NFL for more than 30 seasons. He's facing a challenge here that, of course, is something that he's never seen in his life. But for Dolan, the preparation began before March 12th. He had a feeling something was going down, and he went to work on it. One-on-one with Patrick Dolan.
This year, I genuinely, I don't know at this point if I'm going to be in my house or if I'm going to be in another location providing technical support. The NFL has said that, that you can have technical support people in the facility and at the general manager's house. He can have one person there for technical support. We're not honestly sure how that's going to play out at this point. My gut feeling is I will be at my house providing remote support across, all of the spectrum. But we have a pretty good plan in place on where we think people are going to be. And, regardless, we're going to be working in a draft that it's not like any of the other ones that I've seen in my 32 years in this league.
Patrick, final question. What have you learned about yourself, about the capabilities of the Eagles technology and discovering new ways to solve problems?
I always go to work every day with a plan, what I think I'm going to get done. And especially in the last 15 years, as everything has gone more and more nonlinear, more and more digital, you just have to assume that you have a plan and it's going to get adjusted. That's how life has become in the last month and a half. It's that you wake up every morning and the commute to my office is a son of a gun. It's like 4 feet. I'm used to, instead of fighting 995 traffic, I got to stop. I got to make sure I don't trip over my two trusted friends and my canine friends here. And, but you wake up in the morning and you think you have an idea of what you're doing. And then this remote world that we're working in, it's you have to be ready to adjust. I love the fact that we're being pushed out of our comfort zone. I love the teamwork. I mean, when you go to work every day in the office and you're surrounded by great people, sometimes you take it for granted. I try not to, but you see everybody, everybody's doing their job. It's awesome. You and I both love working there. You've worked for the Eagles a lot longer than I have, but I mean, if the family, the support we get is top notch, best in the league. But when you're in this kind of environment, when you're being pushed out of that comfort zone, when you really have to band together, you see what you got. It's not unlike when the players get injured on a football team and everybody has to step up that much more. That's sort of like what this is about. And everybody's been stepping up. Everybody's been working together. Everybody realizes this is uncomfortable. But the growth that you get from something like this can really be invigorating at the same time. Now, I hate that we're doing this because of the pandemic. Obviously, I don't want to see anybody suffer or anything like that. But the watching an organization, of a group of people work hard to try to continue to provide the very best, and because we're given the resources. So it's just about us working and being creative and thinking outside the box, because when you are pushed outside of that, you do grow. I mean, when we're allowed to come together again and work side by side as opposed to via video conferencing, we're going to be a better organization because of it. Because we will have gone through this, and some of the creative ideas that we've had to come up with can be used and resourced, and it sparks growth.
Patrick, thank you so much. Good luck during this draft, and it sounds like you are ready for anything.
Well, that's like I said, you have to be ready to adjust. That's the key to it. But no, I appreciate it, Dave. I appreciate your time, and go Birds.
In normal times, David Sullivan wouldn't be as involved in going from door to door to door as he's been in this period of time. The Eagles have that state-of-the-art draft room at the NovaCare complex. Well, that room is vacant this week. Sullivan making his rounds. He had some time to talk to us, updating us and giving us some inside information on just what the Eagles are doing from a teleconferencing standpoint. All right, so in a normal draft scenario, what would your role be?
We built a state-of-the-art draft room 2 years ago, and that room is outfitted with just wall-to-wall technology, LED screens and television monitors, some advanced computer systems, and my role on a normal draft would be overseeing that technology and making sure that our folks can visualize all the data we put together to assist them.
And so, obviously, this is not a normal draft period. So what has it been like for you, David? Give us some details.
It is not normal at all. And probably one of the hardest things now is that we are so accustomed to having a beautiful draft room that really could display almost unlimited amounts of information simultaneously. So when we got these instructions from the league as how we'll be carrying out the draft this year, it's been a challenge to kind of condense the information that we have and display it to the parties who will be geographically diverse. So, we could have very different scenarios across different people's houses and in their home offices. So it's been a challenge, but thankfully we've got a lot of great people and tools and resources to be able to do it. So a lot of our time right now is planning how we distribute that information, how we broadcast those images and screens and analysis and metrics, all of those different tools that we're used to having. How do we take that and replicate it in 6, 8, 10 people's homes across the country?
Okay, so when you talk about screens and data, are you talking about, in football terms, video players? I know that I spoke to Patrick and he's got the video component down. What exactly are you providing to Howie and Jeffrey and Doug and Andy, et cetera, that they need to pull up at a moment's notice?
Well, our entire draft board is actually digital. So some teams, and even us, 2 or 3 years ago, when we were looking at who we wanted to draft, we would make a magnet of each player and they'd stick it on the wall. And as a team maybe took that player, we'd take them off the wall and we'd slide them over to a different column. And then, the next guy slid up, or maybe we changed positions because somebody's not there. So that process of tracking the draft and tracking who's still available and what are our needs and what is our current depth chart. Maybe we need to look at how many wide receivers we have, compare that to how many wide receivers are left in the draft, and what is our ranking on each of those players. So all of that data is digitally displayed in a digital version of the draft board. So that's the number one thing that we have to get out to all of our people so that they can see in real time, which is normally a little bit ahead of what the television broadcast, who's out there to be drafted right now, and what are our metrics on that person. Obviously, everybody's been graded. Everybody has data sets. We can even then, and we do often, pull up two players who are still left in the draft and pull them up side by side and compare a physical picture of them. Some of the memos we might have typed in months before when we were evaluating, when our area scouts were evaluating, when our coordinators weighed in. All of that data is then visualized in front of you. And in this year's case, it's going to be visualized on a bunch of screens in people's houses at the same time, so that we can all still have a discussion on, okay, this guy's left. These are the notes we all typed in. Does anyone want to talk about what we see now versus somebody else, et cetera?
Got it. What about the component of, is there a constant video conferencing aspect to this, where Jeffrey can see Doug, can see Howie, can see Andy, can see the scouts, can see the cap people, can see the legal people? Is that all part of what you're doing also?
Absolutely. So, in our normal draft room, there's probably 30 folks sitting in the draft room itself. And then there may be another 30 or 60 individuals in the organization who have a support role. So, that's everyone. You think of medical teams and trainers and coordinators and assistant coaches and legal. All of those people have to have some sort of communication now into the key players, our general manager, our owner, and our head coach. All of those people need direct lines of communication. So video conferencing is a huge part of how we're going to keep those lines of communication open. So yes, we'll have, in addition to the draft displays in all of these locations, we'll have a separate displays, camera, and audio conferencing, so that we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. So if you were in the room and you wanted to talk to somebody next to you, you would kind of turn to your right or maybe your left and have that conversation. And if you wanted to have it privately, maybe you would step off to the side and talk softly. So in a digital world, our conversations now are, how do we maintain those types of communication, whether it be a casual conversation or a private conversation, and how do we do that in a way that it feels natural for all the participants? So we're leveraging some great platforms from our partners at Microsoft. The Teams platform is obviously been really good for us, and we use that to communicate across small teams, and then we can also communicate back to the league on things about the draft. So all of those are kind of the tools we're using to keep the communication as fluid as possible.
I'm a layman, so this may seem like a dumb question, but you're trying to replicate something that at the NovaCare complex, industrial speed, highest quality, bandwidth out the wazoo, anything you need, and you're trying to replicate that in private homes where they just don't have that kind of capability. So what kind of a challenge has that been, if I'm making sense?
Yeah, you used a lot of the same words that keep me up at night. It is a challenge, right? And we're all facing these challenging times where everybody's at home and we're all using our internet all day. We no longer just come home and watch a little bit of Netflix. We're on our internet connection all day, and we're doing business on it. So sure, there have been some pain points. When we first left the office and all the coaches went home, and some of those coaches, are in different states, and they might be in a rural area where there's not great internet. So we've kind of overcome some of those hurdles so far. We are diligently working with some of our partners like Comcast to ensure that the internet connections in our key folks' home is the highest it can be, the fastest it can be, and as stable as possible. And they've been a great help so far. Simple steps like making sure that your laptop battery is charged, maybe using a UPS to back up your laptop or the router at your house are all things that we're evaluating because, the draft is the most important day for us in the year. And so we need to be taking a lot of precautions to make sure that, if a tree falls down and cuts the power, we can still, have these conversations using these tools until we can get services restored. So it's not without its challenges, but, we think we're prepared.
David, you say it's the one-day draft. Sorry to make you have nightmares here for 3 days because the draft is 3 days, 2 nights and one long, long day. How is this all going to play out, do you think, April 23rd to April 25th, and your role during that time?
Well, I think we'll all sleep a little bit better at the end of the 23rd. Certainly, this is the great unknown. It's never been done before, and it's certainly never been done in an era like today where we are so technology-driven. So I think many of us will breathe a sigh of relief after the first night is concluded and hopefully get back to a normal sleep schedule. But you're absolutely right? It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all of those rounds are very important. And then free agency, or undrafted free agency at the end is huge. So none of this is less important. But I think once we get out the gate and kind of get everybody running on the platform that we've built, I think it'll become a little second nature and hopefully, smooth sailing from there. But it's going to be a long couple of days, Dave. I'm not sure we'll be talking during the draft. I think I'm going to be staring at every monitor I have in my home office, formerly known as the bedroom, and just kind of keeping my fingers crossed that all of our plans were good and that everything goes according to them.
Hey, man, good luck to you, David. It sounds like it's been a really very educational process, a very collaborative process, and that so far, so great. The real test comes on Thursday.
That's right. I think we've got a great team internally and with some of our partners. I think we've really put some very smart people in the same virtual room, if you will, and we look forward to supporting this draft this year, and we really look forward to getting back in the NovaCare complex.
David, thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave. Take care.
And so those are the particulars of what the Eagles are going through in this 2020 NFL Draft. We also want to take our final position look at the Eagles as they get ready for this draft. They've got 8 picks. We've gone position by position on the defensive side of the football. Now, with Fran Duffy and Chris McPherson of the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast and the Journey to the Draft podcast, we talk about the offense. Where will the Eagles go on that side of the football? All right, Fran Duffy, Chris McPherson, thanks so much for joining the Eagles Insider podcast. Let's talk position by position offensively. We've done it for the defense. We are only a couple days away from the draft, so I think we just go offensive positions collectively here. The first question, Fran, you can take it first. Will the Eagles use a high draft pick on a wide receiver?
I would say the odds are yes. It doesn't need to be in the first round. It could be second round. It could be third round. But, no matter how you slice it, when you look at this receiver class, if you go best player available, chances are when the Eagles are on the clock, wherever that is, there's going to be a receiver that you're going to call, oh, yeah, this guy's the best player available. And if not, if you're saying, you know what, we just have a couple of needs we want to be able to fill, well, wide receiver is going to be on that list. So I think ultimately by the end of day 2, I'd be shocked if there was not one wide receiver in the Eagles' bag.
C-Mac, do you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you look at the offense, we're focusing on the offense here as it's currently constructed. That's the one area where you can add some youth, you can add some explosiveness, some speed, and whether you want to go first round, day 2, or all throughout, there's going to be quality receivers top to bottom in this entire draft class. So most likely, do I see the Eagles using a high pick on the position? Sure, but the Eagles will be able to, if they want to stick to best player available, find one pretty much any point throughout this draft.
And then when I look at the rest of the offense, okay, I go, all right, running back, I've already got Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Elijah Holyfield. And while we know the Eagles are going to add to the running back group, I'm not sure they do it with another young back, maybe somebody with experience. Fellas, what's your thoughts on that?
I disagree. I definitely could see a mid-round addition where if you want to have a bigger back, someone to fill the Jordan Howard role, and certainly you mentioned Elijah Holyfield, but he's an unknown at this point, and look, if there's some semblance of an off-season, a training camp, love to see him compete for the job, but it would not surprise me to see them use like a middle round selection to get a bigger body back there to complement Miles Sanders and Boston Scott.
Yeah, I agree with C-Mac. I think when you look at this draft class, there are a bunch of running backs that have a wide variety of skill sets. There are certainly going to be your grinders, your between the tackles runners that have that similar Jordan Howard skill set. And I think when you look at some of those guys, certainly they could fit here in Philadelphia. If they want to add another space back, another scat back type, certainly there are guys that fit the bill there as well. But we've seen them in the past go with guys like LeGarrette Blount, in the month of June after the draft. So I think ultimately, while I would not be shocked at all if the Eagles spent even an early mid-round choice on a running back, there's always guys on the open market.
Easiest position on the roster to fill, in my opinion. Okay, we're not going to talk about tight ends. The Eagles are stacked there. Offensive line, I feel like, Halapoulivaati Vaitai's gone. You lose that valuable swing tackle. I could see another developmental type offensive lineman, at least one, in this draft.
Underrated offensive line draft class. And it would not shock me whatsoever because Andre Dillard is unproven going into his second year, even though he showed a lot of promise. But you brought up with Big V and not having him back. Jordan Mailata has not been able to get on the field in his first two seasons. You might want some insurance there. And possibly also, I know Jason Kelce just announced he's coming back for 2020, but do you need to think about a possible long-term replacement as well as just added depth there in the interior line as well?
Yeah, C-Mac hit on it. I think when you look at, the offensive line across the board, and this is a franchise that has consistently said they're always going to add into the trenches. They're always going to try and find guys that can come in and provide depth. And you're always, when you're looking at guys that can provide depth now, those are guys that could potentially become starters later. So they're always going to churn out the bottom of that roster or the bottom of that depth chart and find different ways to be able to plug guys in. Because remember, too, they value versatility, guys that can play tackle guard, guard and center, tackle guard and center. So I think ultimately, I would not be shocked at all if they decide to add an offensive lineman before the weekend is done.
And then the quarterback position, we know Carson Wentz is here long-term, the franchise. Nate Sudfeld, a one-year contract. And then Kyle Lauletta, the young former Giants draft pick. I guess in my mind, if there's somebody you just can't pass over, you take him. Clayton Thorson didn't work out last year. I guess maybe I'd lean more toward a veteran in this role. But do you see the possibility of a quarterback in this draft? Is the quarterback group deep enough that you can use a late-round pick, a mid-round pick, and really have something to develop?
I think so. I think when you look at a typical quarterback here, you can always find somebody on day three that, your coaching staff has taken a liking to. Obviously your quarterback coach, your offensive coordinator, your head coach, if it's an offensive coach, they get to meet with these guys, spend some time with them. Obviously this year, different circumstances in terms of how those meetings go and how they're executed. But ultimately, you're always going to find somebody that you kind of pinpoint and say, you know what, this is a guy that we feel really comfortable with. You typically don't have more than one or two, but every year there's always one. And you always feel like, you know what, we feel like this could be our guy. It's going to differ team by team. So, no, that wouldn't shock me at all if the team felt that there was one guy, maybe in the middle rounds, it could be in the later rounds, that they felt comfortable with saying, you know what, we want to bring this guy in, add him into the quarterback room, continue to try and develop him for down the road.
Especially the big thing is Nate Sudfeld's only on a one-year deal. And certainly there are still some very, very good veterans out there on the market, but are they going to want to come in and be the second, possibly third quarterback? I mean, these are guys, I'm thinking Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, Joe Flacco, who have quality starting experience in the NFL. So certainly they're going to be on the street probably until well after the draft. But the big thing here is, Nate Sudfeld's only on a one-year deal. You got to figure out what's your long-term backup plan beyond 2020.
Excellent stuff, guys. Thank you very much. The fun starts Thursday. Can't wait to see what the Eagles do. Thanks to Peter Kelly and Ray Doyle for putting this all together. I'm Eagles Insider Dave Spadaro saying thank you for joining us once again here on the Eagles Insider Podcast presented by Lincoln Financial Group. If you have a moment to give us a rating, we certainly do appreciate it, and it helps others find this podcast. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Make sure you're with us on Wednesday. I'll have Howie Roseman and Andy Weidel exclusively for you here on the Eagles Insider Podcast, presented by Lincoln Financial Group. Have yourselves a great Eagles day, everyone. Fly, Eagles, fly, and be safe and healthy out there as we all get through this together.